Stories of Great Christians. From its radio studios in Chicago, the Moody Bible Institute greets its friends everywhere with Chapter 1 of Francis Asbury, the story of the Circuit Riders. Today we begin a new transcribed series of Stories of Great Christians with a story that takes us back to the late 18th century and the revolutionary days of our country. It's a story that's part and parcel of American history, although it embraces a portion of our past rarely remembered or studied. Primarily, the story we have to tell concerns one Francis Asbury, the first Methodist bishop to be ordained in the United States, though at least a dozen other men will enter into this appraisal of our past, all of them of that glorious and hardy rank of itinerant preachers known as circuit riders.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here in Washington, D.C. on this beautiful Indian summer day to honor the memory of a great man. It was through the interest of thousands of patriotic-minded Americans that Augustus Lukeman was commissioned to make a statue of Bishop Francis Asbury to remain here in Washington as a perpetual monument to this great man of God who died more than 108 years ago. The statue has been completed, and in a moment it will be unveiled. I know you will agree that Mr. Lukeman, one of our finest contemporary sculptors, has succeeded in capturing the spirit of Asbury, of his great devotion to God. We are fortunate today in having with us a man who wishes to pay his tribute to the heritage that is ours in such men as Francis Asbury. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Calvin Coolidge, President of the United States.
Thank you very much. As is my custom, I wish to be brief and to the point. We are gathered here for an important ceremony. There is something I wish said at this time, as a citizen, first of all, as well as President of this Republic. A great lesson has been taught us by this holy life. It was because of what Bishop Asbury and his associates preached, and what other religious organizations through their ministry preached, that our country has developed, and incidentally, has developed so much freedom.
The date of that occasion was October 15th, 1924. When you visit Washington, D.C., you'll want to see this beautiful equestrian statue erected to the memory of a great Christian. What was there about the man or his message that made him so unique that a president of the United States would do him honor? Well, we shall learn much of the preaching as well as the life of Francis Asbury as our story progresses. But perhaps at this point you're saying, just who is Francis Asbury? Why is his life so important to me today? We've already said that he was America's first Methodist bishop to be locally ordained, but he was not one to supervise his charge from afar. He arrived in 1771 in what were then the American colonies. He died in 1816, and during those 45 years he traveled nearly 300,000 miles, mostly on horseback, some of it on foot. On the rough roads and treacherous byways of early America, he wore out a half a dozen horses and innumerable vehicles. For sheer gallantry and courage, there are few stories to equal his. But what is more important, he consistently and constantly preached the gospel of Jesus Christ. His parish was a continent. This was the essence of life for Francis Asbury. But enough of introduction. We journey back through the years to 18th century England and to Joseph and Elizabeth Asbury.
Now, Joseph, are you sure of your duties?
Indeed, Elizabeth. Haven't you coached me for days?
Most of all, see that you don't drop anything, and remember, you simply walk among the guests, and if they want any food, they'll help themselves.
Yes, Elizabeth.
And if they ask for anything to drink, then send them over to me at the table. Are you sure now you know what to do?
Yes, Elizabeth, I am. Now let me be. We're already late with the refreshments.
Joseph, I'm worried.
Now what's wrong? Don't you feel well?
I'm a little tired, but I'll be all right. But I wish we didn't have to do this.
So do I. I'm not a butler, I'm a gardener. Just because his lordship's in need of help, I don't see why...
Here he comes. And I'll be off with you.
Oh, Joseph, you have the food on the tray. Excellent. Oh, you look good in that uniform.
Thank you, sire.
Oh, may I? Thank you. It tastes very good. Tell me, Joseph, how is Elizabeth?
How is she, sire?
Oh, come now. You know what I mean. The baby. When is she expecting it?
Oh, she says at any time, sire.
Well, there are two physicians in our party here tonight, and should anything happen...
Yes, my lord. She is a loud one for just 5 months.
But she has such a winsome way about her, even when she cries.
Little Sarah. The world's a hard place for women. I guess you know that, Elizabeth.
It's difficult for everyone, Joseph.
I wonder who that is. No, sit still. I'll get it. What? Reverend, this is a surprise. Come in, sire.
Thank you, Mr. Asbury. I trust you're well.
Yes, thank you. My wife and the baby are in the other room. Would you care to visit them?
Indeed, I would. It's about them, or rather about the baby, that I came. Oh, Mrs. Asbury, good evening.
How do you do, sir?
And this is the little girl? A lovely creature indeed.
Thank you, Reverend.
And what have you named her?
Sarah.
Just Sarah, no middle name.
Never did see the reason for 2 names, sire. She'll only have 1 to bother with.
Very good. I think I might as well come to the point of my visit. First of all, we've missed you both at worship services. And then I'm just a bit concerned about your young daughter.
We've been meaning to come, sire.
And I have rather odd working hours, Reverend.
I understand that, but this is your first child, isn't it?
My husband had a son by an earlier...
Elizabeth, we don't have to go into that.
This is your first child?
Yes.
And when do you plan to have the child baptized?
Well, she's really not very old as yet.
How old is she?
5 months.
That's old enough, don't you think? As I say, we've missed both of you at the parish. And seriously, for the sake of the child as well as for yourselves, you mustn't forget your duties to God.
Joseph, is that you?
Yes, Elizabeth, it's me.
You look very tired.
I am. It was a hot day in the fields. Elizabeth, I have something to tell you.
You make it sound very important.
It is. Where's Sarah?
She's sleeping.
I see.
Is that all you had to say?
No, it's about Thomas.
Your son?
Yes, he's come back.
Here in Handsworth?
Yes, he's on his way to Birmingham. Wants to work in the mines, he says.
But I thought he was at sea.
He was, but the voyage is over and he's back. And we've got to help him.
But, Joseph, he ran away. He could have helped you all these years.
I know, but Elizabeth, it's not all his fault. After his mother died, I couldn't bring him up right. We must help him. He'll need lodging over the night.
Very well, Joseph. But why the secrecy? Do you have to whisper?
For one thing, he's outside the door, probably listening. For another, well, Elizabeth, he's wanted by the law.
What?
Yes, he stole a horse in Bristol. At least 2 men can identify him. That's why we've got to keep him here and tell no one he's back. He'll be gone to Birmingham in the morning.
I don't like it, Joseph.
I don't either, but he's still my son, Elizabeth, and...
I know. Ask him in.
Thank you, dear. Everything will work out all right. Come in, Tom.
Thanks, Dad.
You've never met your mother, have you?
No, I haven't. Don't know what's usually said at a time like this.
Welcome back home, Tom.
Thanks.
There.
Is it yours?
She's our little daughter.
I didn't know I had a sister. But, say, you'd better tend to her. She looks sick. She has little red spots all over her face. Looks to me like chicken pox.
Thank you, Reverend. It was a fine service.
I'm sorry for you both. Little Sarah meant a lot to you, didn't she?
She'd given me a new lease on life.
Mrs. Asbury, you're not up to saying much, but is there anything I can do to help?
No, you've already helped more than we deserve. I've been thinking. Here we haven't been to church for, I guess a year and a half. Just didn't care about it, I guess, and little Sarah. You came and visited us and all, and you wanted us to have her baptized. And now she's gone. If we could live our lives over again.
What is past, Mrs. Asbury. It's the future that's important. God's interested in that, too.
Sire, I was wondering if perhaps you could do me a favor.
I'll do anything I can.
I've never been much for reading, but I've been thinking that I ought to read some. From the Bible, I've never read it. Could you get me a copy of the Bible?
Why, that's an easy request to fill. I'll bring a copy over to your house tomorrow.
Elizabeth, can't you do anything else but just read the Bible? There are chores to be done, and you... Shh. Don't tell me, shh. We got work to do.
I've done all my chores, Joseph. You can see for yourself.
Well, maybe...
Joseph, you ought to read this book, too. Really, I've never read anything like it.
I haven't got time for such things.
I wish you did. I wish we could read it together. Joseph?
Yes?
You know, we're going to have another baby.
Yes, you told me yesterday.
But I had a dream last night. I didn't tell you.
Elizabeth, I don't want to hear about your dreams. What's come over you, anyway?
I dreamed that God was speaking to me, Joseph. He told me our child was going to be a boy, and that he'll be a preacher.
And so we conclude Chapter 1 of Francis Asbury, the story of the Circuit Riders. Another in a transcribed series of stories of great Christians which come to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.